veterans in particular, and that's a group that I'm super passionate is still underserved, unfortunately, in our country. I think we could do a lot of good. What's most popular for them? I would assume THC free, just for job screening and urine analysis tests. But
Yeah,
what works best?
It's I think what you said earlier is absolutely point and spot on, meaning that the full spectrum is what we have almost, I would say, around 90% positive feedback on. And for those that have to have our CBD only product, those are exactly what you said. Those are the ones that are working a government position or federal jobs, things like that. And that's actually why we developed that CBD only, product, because we originally rolled out with a full spectrum 5 years ago. That's all we were going to do. And then I kept
Right.
having my wife's active duty, so we're always around military, and those are just transitioning out, right? So we were at a military base in Florida, and we're surrounded by GS employees, federal employees, and they're all like, "Oh, I can't
Right.
use it. I can't use it." I was like, "Okay, that makes sense." So 90% of the products that we sell are full spectrum, and about 90% of those are effective. So that 10% that it's not effective for, they use our broad spectrum or our isolate products. But man, hands down, bar none, full spectrum is head and shoulder above everybody else, and the effectiveness and how well it works. And when you guys talk about your full spectrum products, talk about some of the cannabinoids that are available with you guys at Global.
Yeah, and so we're one of the larger manufacturing distributors in the United States, and so we have a pretty wide variety of different options, whether it's gummies, isolates from not only the full spectrum distillates to even a THC-free whole hemp, which has been really popular. Takes a lot longer to make, but still has those flavonoids and even like a little bit of chlorophyll in there. So it still has a lot of that synergistic effects, but we removed the THC. So products
what's that remediation process, Ian, if you can talk about that at all?
Yeah, and so there's a handful, like CRC is popular. We use ethanol and CO2 for our extraction processes.
Okay.
These falling film, chromatography, whether it's a Busy Bee, shout out to Busy Bee, those guys make some great BHO extractions. It's more on the THC side, but Eden Labs, there's a lot of different ways to kind of skin the cat.
Sure.
And everyone likes to pontificate and say X is better than Y. For us and for I think most people that have been doing it for a while, it's really what's efficiency, and it's about the end product. And that remediation process, you're basically taking it to a crude, and you're slowly using steam distillation, pressure and heat, cooking off those impurities, those plant matters, the lipids, the waxes, and so you get those pure cannabinoids, left over to CBD, the CBG, the CBC, the CBN, and there's a ton that are in the minors that don't show up as much. But getting those rare cannabinoids are exciting, like CBN and CBC.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Which are, in your full spectrum, and most people's others, they do have true full spectrum. But you want to make sure that you actually do have those minor cannabinoids in there to achieve those effects. And I think there's a lot of research. There is a lot of exciting research coming out from clients that are working with our product, and just on research in general, from CBG on its antibacterial properties to anti-inflammatory properties, CBN for sleep and night terrors. Any vets, I would definitely recommend trying a little extra CBN there if they're having trouble sleeping. Because I personally have worked with past patients that have had great results on there too. So it's exciting. We've only scratched the surface. Is the crazy part.
Oh, so just scratch the surface. So, let's help our listeners understand what full spectrum, broad spectrum, and THC free is, or isolate, right? So full spectrum, when we talk about full spectrum, that's literally the plant being extracted, almost all the matter of it, minus the fats and lipids, right? That's coming out of that plant. That's got your CBD, your CBN, your CBG. It's got all your terpenes, your flavonoids. It's everything in it. That's a full spectrum product. Are you and I in agreement on that?
Absolutely.
Perfect. And then if you want to tell listeners what a broad spectrum product is, help them understand what that is.
Yeah, and so most common form is broad spectrum distillate, and so that's kind of like the in between per se is how I describe it. Full spectrum is going to be the best and most effective for people that are new or have jobs or just afraid of THC for whatever reason. Broad spectrum still has those minor cannabinoids such as CBG, C, and N, and so you can still get a full spectrum, a broad spectrum effect, but it's not. It's going to, not. There's still a slight chance that you could fail a drug test. It's just so very, very low. It's a negligible possibility, and then which is still great. I recommend broad spectrum actually for most people starting off if they are either a little less educated on the subject or if they just have any hesitation.
Absolutely.
To being new to the cannabinoid products.
Yeah, and I think the key for our listeners to understand there on the broad spectrum, most of the lab analysis that we get with that is going to show THC not being present in it, or it's at such a low level, it's a non-detect, or it's way below 0.3. It may be at 0.002 or something like that. So, very low, and that's why I love the caveat that you put in there. Hey, there's still an off chance because some formulators just don't know what they're doing, and I've actually had broad spectrum before that's been formulated sent to me as broad spectrum, but it had THC in it, and it had like 0.1 THC in it. So and I was like, guys, this isn't broad spectrum any way you look at it, So,
yeah.
And then we've got the isolates. So you guys have the ability and have product available that is the isolated molecule of that cannabinoid. So like a CBD, just a crystal, right? And a CBG, just crystal, just pure by itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you asked about that because I'm extremely excited about these more rare cannabinoids, such as CBG, C, and N. And yeah, we've been able to, it just takes a lot of lab work and time and just really know what we're doing. And we have some really good people on our extraction and lab team, Dustin and Fred and Frank, et cetera. But CBG isolate, we're even working at the hand sanitizer. We're working at tinctures. We're working at more into whatever people need on there. And so, and that's got CBGs, I would say the notable differences compared to CBD is that it's a little more powerful anti-inflammatory and more antibacterial, but it's kind of actually the mother cannabinoid that, if you're in the hemp field, right, and you cut down that crop before it's ready to cure, a couple of weeks early, you're actually going to get higher CBG ratings because as it comes to fruition, a lot of that CBG actually converts to CBD and other cannabinoids. So it's very interesting. And, CBN, CBC, and we use that with, advanced chromatography techniques to kind of get those rare cannabinoids. And you, of course, use the very highly special genetics to get those higher CBG or CBN plants. And it just takes a lot more time, money, and care, and a little bit of luck.
So true.
To harvest.
That is so true.
To get that, and so a lot of people, it'll be interesting to see how this harvest goes this season. I know a lot of people did switch over to CBG, and prices have come down a bit. So I know a lot of people did struggle last year with distribution on their crops, and so I think it's I think with the demand increasing and education following, that it should even out. It'll be interesting to see.
Couldn't agree more. This year's going to be very fun.
Yeah.
We got just a couple minutes left too. But I think you're right on point there too. And, I think it's so exciting from a consumer standpoint, knowing that the CBG is finally coming down, because it's almost been at a point where it's been unattainable for the end user, the consumer on that end. It's been so pricey. So it's really exciting to hear it's coming down.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for people that need more cannabinoids in their system or just have a higher tolerance. Yeah, it's important that, and we're very competitive on our pricing and, try to make sure we're fair and pass through those costs to our wholesale and B2B partners so that their clients, the end users, can have affordable medicine. And we're kind of seeing that happen in the market. So that's exciting, but lower the barriers to entry to people getting it.
True, man.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, if they want to get a hold of you or just check out you guys' website and stuff, what's that contact information?
Yeah, you can get a hold of me, Ian at globalcannabinoids.io. Is a good place to email at any time. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Ian VENSEL, IANVENSEL. Love to connect there, share knowledge, learn from others, and always giving people a lot of updates. And it's going to be a wild rest of 2020, especially with these troubling times. But I think that there's going to be a lot of good that comes in it on a macro scale. There's going to be a lot of pain short term, but I think people are going to take their health a lot more seriously. And so we're excited to work with people like you, advancing the education and just pushing the message forward on how people can really help themselves, their families, and the communities through this powerful plant.
I could not agree more. Ian, it's been such a pleasure today, man. Thanks so much for taking the time here with us on the Veterans for Cannabis podcast. We're actually looking forward to hopefully hearing from you again soon too, man.
Yes, thank you so much, Josh, for everything you've done. It's great to be here, and thank you so much to every veteran that you've worked with and out here in the U.S., et cetera. Well, the U.S. and throughout North America, because you guys really put on the line. So we appreciate you deeply and look forward to working with more of you guys to help heal our nation.
Absolutely. That's Ian VENSEL, and this is Joshua Littrell. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Veterans for Cannabis podcast. Take care.
Line over there, send the word over there, that the Yanks are coming, the drums coming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't come back till it's over there, over there.